Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop, and this is the MWTCA Square, which we are making a notebook holder for. Let's dive in. So we're going to be starting today with rosewood because something of this caliber requires something nice. And so I've got a couple scraps of this rosewood left over, and I thought this would make a really good way to outline and create the pocket for this notebook to fit into. This is stuff that I bought a while ago and have been using it on little pieces and projects, and it's kind of nice to be able to pull out a chunk of rosewood and use it. It's not easy stuff to work with, but it is rather beautiful when it's done. It has a very similar look and feel to walnut, but it is much harder and more dense and more durable. So I'm going to take this scrap piece, and I have it about 1 inch tall. It is the thickness that I have inside the box to play with, because I want this to be the same height as the groove that the lid slides in and out of. So I cut it to that length, and then I'm going to resaw this down the middle to create strips that are a little less than 3/8 of an inch wide, and this will be the outline for the pocket that actually builds into it. So we can draw a line down the middle and resaw down. Now, a lot of people are going to really worry about hitting that line dead on and being perfectly straight down the middle. And it's really not that important. It just end up with thinner sticks if you go off the line a little bit more. You can always plane it back and make it to wherever it ends up being. There is no precise size that this needs to be. But the better your skill gets and the more you do it, the more you can get closer and closer to that line and have to do less and less work to clean it up and to get it ready for actual work on this. Next, I'm going to grab the notebook that I was planning on using. Later on, I found out this is just, it's too thick. So I needed to get a thinner notebook that would actually fit into there. But I need to figure out how big can I make the pocket. And since the notebook is a standard size, we're just going to go with that. I'm going to miter the corners because there's nothing really structural on this. And the miters are relatively strong with a good connection on there. So I'm going to cut them roughly to their size and then miter them on the shooting board. Because they're so small, they're really easy to clean up on there. But you can cut them pretty quickly and very, very close to 45, and then bring them back exactly true to 45. And the important thing is that the top and bottom angle on there are the same as the side to side. As long as those are the same, then your box will be relatively square. So just making sure that they are the same length is the only thing that's important. At this point, I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm wanting to do on this. I know I want to cut a little bit of an angle on here, and I want to create a groove into it. So I figured let's start with the groove on this. Now, on the bottom, the groove can go all the way through, and so I'm going to grab a plow plane with a 1/8 inch blade, because I'm going to be putting a 1/8 inch piece of wood in here as the front to the pocket. And so for that one, it can go all the way through it. But for the two side ones, it needs to be a stopped groove that come up a little ways, because I don't want the pocket to come all the way up. I want it to stop a little ways so you can still see the notebook in there. And so for that one, we're going to literally carve it out. It's only about 2 inches long, so it's not very detailed. Come down and chop out either of the sides, and then with the chisel bevel down, it actually cuts it out pretty quickly and easily. And I've got a nice groove that matches. As long as my chisel is the same width as the iron that I was using for the grooving plane, it works out really well. I have this really nice curly maple that has been torrefied, and I thought this would make a really nice contrast with everything else in there. One of the things about this box is that it's all different woods. It's got cherry, it's got walnut, it's got babinga, it's got maple, and so with the rosewood and the torrefied maple, I thought it would just kind of be fun to add to the mixture of colors and textures. And particularly this stuff is really kind of it's brittle and it's not very easy to work with, but man, is it beautiful when the oil hits it. Now, the other thing I need to do is rip down the top piece, because I need it to be shorter so that the book can actually slide out. I could remove this piece altogether, but I kind of like the look of having the book coming in and sliding in an angle. I just like how that came out. So I ripped it down at the bench hook. I could do it in the vise or any other way, but I always like trying new things and experimenting. For the two sides, though, they need to be angled from full height at one end down to the thickness of that piece I just ripped. So I marked the height of that little piece and then drew a line arbitrarily far back and played connect the dots between them and ripped them out. Tried one at the bench hook and the other one in the vise and just kind of experimented. Now, I could use all sorts of different glues for this, but because it is rosewood and a little bit more oily, I'm going to be using some epoxy on this. Plus, the high-performance epoxy is incredibly good stuff, and for small contexts like this, it lasts for a long time. Because this isn't structural and everything is just going to be butt glued together, together, I wanted to make sure there's a good glue on here. Plus, because I'm just going to be taping it together and there aren't any clamps, it doesn't really need much clamping force, which epoxy is fantastic for. It doesn't need that full strength to get up to it. Use some zip ties around the outside just to make sure I can add a little bit more to it, and it comes out really nicely. Once it has come out of the glue, once it is out of the glue, we're going to plane it down. Now I'm going to plane these front faces so that I get a nice smooth transition all the way down, and then bring the plane up and go around the outside surface. This small piece was actually kind of hard to hold on to, and it's delicate enough. I didn't want to put it in between dogs, and I didn't want to use it on a planing stop, and so I just had to be very, very careful with it. Some of it I can clamp up here in the vise and do the edges, and then of course I broke one of them. So I could have put some more glue in there, but in this case I just decided to put some super glue on it. Again, this really isn't a high strength connection for everything, and it will end up being glued to the structure it is going into. So there's not really any structural reason for this. But the last thing we need to do before installing it is to come through and trim it all out and make sure that all the little last details are on there. I want to add a light chamfer breaking the edges on all the corners. And then, of course, boiled linseed oil. And I love what it does to this torrefied curly maple. It is just beautiful. It pops everything out on it. And with the rosewood, just gets that buttery chocolate color that I really love. It's not quite as deep as a black walnut, but it gives you that just tangible, beautiful tone. I also taped off the back on it to make sure I don't get any finish on there, or very, very little finish on there, because I'm going to be gluing it into the box. And this has a tiny bit, I don't know if it was originally oiled or whatnot, but it's actually a very, very light finish on there, so gluing to it will not be a problem at all. I wanted to trace around it to make an outline so I could place it exactly in the same place. And then I'm going to be using some more epoxy. Whip that up on the back and apply it very lightly to the contact points. I don't want to have a lot of it smearing out. So I'm going to be putting it on a little bit thick to begin with, and I'm going to come back and thin it out a little bit more. As long as I know I have a good joint between the two, I don't need to have anything that has to fill the gaps. I can get a nice clean point on there. Then I'm going to also add a little bit of thick set CA just to hold it in place while the epoxy dries. So I can set it lightly in place and then hold it down. I'm just going to hold it for a few seconds until the CA gets it, and then we can put a bunch of weight on it and let it sit. After that, the project is done. I just need to box it up and get ready to sell it next time, and it'll go off to the next owner of it, and they can do what they want to add to it. But of course, I'm going to add my name to it as everyone else has added their name to it, and because I have a brand, I thought that'd be kind of fun to put a brand on there. We'll see who gets to own this in the future. It might be you.
Okay, I know this is a really weird one, but this is actually something kind of special for me. Every year at the National MWTCA Conference, they have an auction, and it is one of my favorites. It's an amazing auction, great deals, lots of tools, lots of fun. I did a live video on it this last year, and if you want to see that, it's kind of cool. But one of the things that's auctioned is the square, and this square was made by a member years ago, and he brought it back and sold it at the auction. That's kind of cool. And he occasionally makes things to sell at the auction for the charity, and so all the proceeds that go for it go to the MWTCA. But in this case, he brought it back, and then the next person who won it brought it back to sell again. And then he brought it back and brought it back to sell again. And then eventually someone made this box that it goes in. And I thought, since I bought it this last fall, I'm going to make a pocket that then holds a notebook so that whoever buys it in the future can actually put notes in the notebook. I left some space up here, so if someone in the future wants to add a plaque or something of that nature up here, I think that would be kind of cool. So this is a lot of fun, and I really like how this all came out in making this little pocket that holds it in place. So I hope you like this. I know it's a very different project, but if you do come to MWTCA for one of the national conferences, then maybe you will win this in the future and give to the charity. So I always love seeing how much this goes for. I was ready to go for $50 because sometimes it goes up over 100 or more. It's kind of one of those fun things, and I think as it goes along and more people write their names in here, the more this is going to go for a higher and higher value in the future. So if you do want to own it for a certain amount of time, you better come to a meeting here soon. So yeah. So I hope you like this. If you have questions, thoughts, ideas, why I did some dumb things the way I did it, let me know that down in the comments. I do like reading through those, and I do read through all of them. Answer as many of the questions as I can get to, so thank you for that. It does actually help out the channel. Anytime you like, comment, share, subscribe, all those things down below, thank you. It really means a lot, and it's very, very valuable to the channel. Thank you for that. But if you want to go even farther and really support the channel, just like I've supported the MWTCA, then think about becoming a patron. All of these names over here, those are some of the patrons on Patreon. Between patrons and members, people who've clicked the thank you button down there, honestly, you guys are the ones that keep this channel going. We are completely sponsored by you. And without you, we wouldn't be here. So thank you for that. If you would like to find out more about that, you know what to do. Links down below. I think that'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. I added a notebook to this one so that people in the future can take note of what I did.